Archaeologists found a mummy of unusual size. The DNA results shocked the world. A three-fingered mummy with DNA test results that sparked worldwide controversy. A dagger forged from metal that came from beyond Earth, resting silently inside the tomb of an Egyptian pharaoh. A vast ancient city buried beneath the desert sands for thousands of years, discovered only recently through advanced radar technology. A cemetery containing more than 1 million mummies that continues to puzzle archaeologists because no one knows exactly where all of these people came from. Every one of these discoveries is real, and to this day, many of their mysteries remain without a definitive explanation. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History. This is the place where we explore lost civilizations, world-shaking archaeological discoveries, and historical mysteries that continue to challenge modern science. My friends, archaeology is far more than the search for artifacts buried by time. It is a journey of piecing together fragments of the past to uncover the origins of humanity and the world's ancient civilizations. There are mysterious mummies that have fueled scientific debate for years, thousands of years-old structures that have reshaped our understanding of history, and artifacts whose true origins still cannot be determined with certainty. And to prove just how extraordinary these discoveries are, in today's video, we'll explore some of the strangest and most controversial archaeological finds ever uncovered. Discoveries that have forced researchers to reconsider many long-held theories about humanity's past. So, are you ready to join me on this fascinating journey? If you are, let's dive right in with our very first discovery. The three-fingered mummy of Nazca, Peru. DNA. Results that have sparked global controversy for years. You know, the world of archaeology is truly fascinating. There are discoveries that barely receive any attention, but there are also discoveries that appear only once and are enough to create waves around the entire world. And even after dozens of scientific examinations and countless debates among experts, some mysteries still remain unsolved. Imagine this. One day, scientists uncover a mummy with a body shape that is almost human, but it has only 3 fingers, an unusually elongated skull, and several features that have never been observed in modern human anatomy. Would you believe that it was an extinct human species, an incredibly sophisticated hoax, or evidence of something far beyond humanity's current understanding? If you cannot picture it just yet, then join me on the first journey of today's video, because I will take you to the Nazca Desert in Peru, the place where one of the most controversial archaeological mysteries of the 21st century began, and where we may find answers to the questions that have puzzled people for years. The story began in 2017, when a research group publicly announced the discovery of a strange mummy found in the Nazca Desert region of southern Peru. From the moment the first images appeared, both the scientific community and those fascinated by ancient mysteries were left stunned. The mummy was named Maria, and the feature that immediately attracted the most attention was her unusually long hands with only 3 fingers. But that was not all. Maria's skull was much longer than that of a modern human, and her face appeared to lack clearly defined nostrils, creating an appearance that seemed both human and strangely unfamiliar. At the time, in order to avoid emotional or unsupported conclusions, experts conducted a series of modern scientific tests, including DNA analysis and radiocarbon dating. The results indicated that Maria was a female individual who lived approximately 1,800 years ago, meaning she existed during the period when the Nazca civilization was flourishing in Peru. This was the first finding that forced researchers to seriously examine the specimen instead of immediately dismissing it. However, the truly shocking discovery came from the DNA data. According to the research report, 98.5% of Maria's DNA belonged to a primate species, meaning it was almost identical to human DNA. However, the remaining 1.5% could not be matched with any known organism in modern genetic databases. It was this small percentage that triggered countless different theories. Some suggested that it was simply an error during the analysis process. Others argued that this unidentified portion of DNA could represent the existence of an evolutionary branch that humanity has never discovered before. Not long afterward, geneticists from Russia also became involved in studying the specimen. They determined that Maria possessed 23 pairs of chromosomes, the same number found in modern humans. This discovery made the mystery even more complicated. If we only examine genetic structure, Maria clearly shares many characteristics with humans. However, her external appearance is completely different from any human remains ever discovered before. From that point, numerous theories began to emerge. Some researchers suggested that Maria could represent an ancient human lineage that has never been recorded in evolutionary history. Meanwhile, those who support extraterrestrial theories boldly claim that this could be the result of a hybridization between humans and another intelligent life form. Of course, these ideas have never been accepted by the mainstream scientific community, but they were enough to make Maria one of the most famous mummies in the world. On the other hand, many experts remain extremely skeptical. They argue that the entire specimen may simply be an elaborate creation designed to attract media attention. According to this theory, Maria could have been assembled from different bones taken from pre-Columbian mummies and then covered with a plaster-like material to create the strange appearance. This argument comes from the fact that Maria's ribcage and skeletal structure show many differences compared with normal human anatomy. The controversy seemed to be fading, but new developments soon brought the story back into the spotlight. More recently, two new mummies named Paloma and Antonio were introduced to the public. Both were also reportedly discovered in the Nazca Desert of Peru, the same region where Maria was found. What made them especially interesting was that they also had 3 fingers, although their facial features and body proportions were completely different. According to researchers' descriptions, Paloma and Antonio had small, slightly slanted eyes and body heights comparable to those of short adult humans. Dr. David Ruiz Vela, former president of the Peruvian Medical Association, was one of the people directly involved in analyzing these 2 mummies. He stated that both specimens had internal organ structures similar to humans and that brain images were still preserved. Antonio even had a penetrating wound through his chest, passing through the ribs, liver, and abdominal cavity, suggesting that this injury may have been the cause of death. Meanwhile, Paloma surprised researchers by becoming the first mummy in the group to preserve traces of hair with a clearly visible copper-colored tone. Both specimens were estimated to be around 1,500 years old. According to the research team, these mummies were preserved due to a layer of diatomaceous material covering their bodies, along with a highly unusual binding substance that they claimed was inconsistent with the technological capabilities of that era. However, many independent scientists continue to maintain their opposing views. As early as 2018, only 1 year after Maria was revealed to the public, at least 4 independent DNA analyses concluded that the specimens were actually pre-Columbian mummies that had been modified by human hands. Yet strangely, the more opinions rejected the claims, the more intense the debate became. Meanwhile, journalist and UFO researcher Jaime Maussan continues to strongly defend the idea that these mummies represent unknown beings that have never been identified in Earth's history. He even brought several specimens before the Mexican Congress, claiming that human history may need to be rewritten. Are Maria, Paloma, and Antonio simply the result of carefully constructed creations? Or beneath the dry sands of the Nazca Desert, is there still a secret waiting to be uncovered? One that modern science is not yet capable of explaining? Perhaps only future research will bring us closer to the truth. But for now, the story of the 3-fingered mummies remains one of the most controversial archaeological mysteries the world has ever known. So, what do you think? Based on the DNA analysis and the evidence surrounding these mysterious mummies, what do you believe they really are? If you already have your own answer, share your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can join the discussion. The Arctic Princess Mummy, with intact eyelashes hidden for centuries. If in the previous chapter we explored a mummy that shocked the world because of its unusual body structure, then our next journey will take you to a completely different place. No longer the scorching heat of Peru's Nazca Desert, this time we will travel thousands of miles to the frozen Arctic region of Russia. Here, temperatures remain far below freezing, the ground stays frozen for most of the year, and these extreme conditions have accidentally transformed nature itself into a perfect preservation chamber. And it was precisely in this land, a place that seemed to contain nothing but ice, snow, and freezing winds, that archaeologists discovered a mummy that left the scientific world amazed. After lying beneath the permafrost for hundreds of years, the woman's eyelashes were still clearly visible, as if she had only just closed her eyes and fallen asleep. This discovery also took place in 2017. At that time, Russian scientists began excavating the ancient Zeleny Yar cemetery, located near the city of Salikhard in Russia's Yamalo-Nenets region. This archaeological site is located near the Arctic Circle and is famous for its permanently frozen soil, which has preserved numerous traces of ancient cultures. During their excavation, researchers unexpectedly discovered a special burial site containing the remains of a woman who had lived many centuries ago. The upper part of her body, especially her head, was preserved in an almost perfect condition. What surprised everyone the most was that her eyelashes were still intact, strands of hair remained attached to her scalp, and her teeth were almost completely undamaged. These details are extremely rare among naturally preserved mummies, especially after spending such a long period buried underground. Because of her extraordinary appearance, the media quickly gave this woman the mysterious name, the Arctic Princess. Although this title does not accurately represent her true social status in ancient society, it reflects the admiration people have for a body preserved in a way that seems almost impossible. After the mummy was transported to a laboratory, anthropologists and forensic experts began conducting a series of detailed examinations. The results showed that the woman died at approximately 35 years old. Her head was preserved almost completely thanks to natural freezing conditions, while the lower part of her body had suffered significant decomposition over time. However, the simple fact that soft tissues on her face were still present was enough to classify her as one of the best preserved natural mummies ever discovered in the Arctic region. But there was another detail that left archaeologists even more puzzled. The woman's entire face had an unusual blue color. At first glance, many people believed this was caused by decomposition or chemical reactions within the soil. However, after closer examination, experts determined that the blue color was not related to the woman's body itself. The true cause came from fragments of a bronze container that had been buried alongside her. Over time, the bronze oxidized and produced blue-colored compounds that spread onto the mummy's face. This accidentally created an appearance that was both mysterious and somewhat frightening, causing many people who saw it for the first time to feel a sense of unease. But the mysteries did not end there. Archaeologists revealed that the burial process of this woman also contained many unusual details. They discovered that after her death, her body was not placed directly into the ground as was common at the time. Instead, ancient people placed her inside a special protective covering made from bronze and animal fur before burying her beneath the frozen soil. Researchers believe this may have been part of a significant burial ritual practiced by the communities living in the Arctic region during that period. However, the greatest mystery for archaeologists was not the burial method itself, but rather the identity of this woman. During years of excavation at Zeleny Yar, researchers uncovered more than 30 graves, and almost all of them contained the remains of men. Because of this, they once believed that the cemetery may have been exclusively reserved for males, possibly warriors, hunters, or individuals who held important roles within the community. However, the discovery of the Arctic Princess completely challenged that assumption. Why was the only woman found in a cemetery that was almost entirely occupied by men? Was she a member of an ancient elite class? Or was she someone who held a special role in the spiritual rituals of her community? To this day, no one has been able to provide a definite answer. For this reason, after completing the excavation, Russian scientists decided to launch an ambitious project, reconstructing the woman's face using modern forensic technology. They hoped that her facial features, skull structure, and anthropological characteristics would help determine her ethnic origins and reveal more about the life of this mysterious woman. Not only that, experts continued analyzing her DNA, as well as isotopes found in her teeth and bones, to understand her diet, living environment, and possible genetic relationship with the people buried around her. Each new result provided another piece of the puzzle, but the complete story of the Arctic Princess still contains many unanswered questions. Researchers hope that in the near future, they will be able to fully decode the remaining mysteries surrounding this extraordinary mummy. But regardless, you can see that what makes this discovery truly special is not the presence of treasure or the remains of a lost civilization. Instead, it reminds us that nature itself can sometimes become a greater guardian of history than any museum. The frozen permafrost of the Russian Arctic preserved the face of this woman for hundreds of years, allowing her to meet humanity once again in the 21st century. Fascinating, isn't it? The extraterrestrial dagger in Tutankhamun's tomb, a material mystery that science still cannot fully confirm. From the frozen lands of Russia, we will now travel back more than 3,000 years in time to Egypt, a land known as the cradle of some of the most mysterious civilizations in human history. If you have ever watched archaeological documentaries, you probably know that the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, discovered in the Valley of the Kings near the city of Luxor, Egypt, in 1922, is considered one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. Inside this almost intact tomb, thousands of priceless treasures were uncovered. However, did you know that among countless pieces of gold, jewelry, and magnificent ancient artifacts, there was one small object that caused scientists to spend decades studying it, yet they still have not reached a unanimous conclusion? That object is a golden dagger with a blade believed to have been made from an extraterrestrial meteorite. At first glance, this dagger does not appear very different from many other ceremonial weapons of ancient Egyptian royalty. The handle was skillfully crafted from gold, and the sheath was decorated with extraordinary detail, demonstrating the masterful craftsmanship of ancient artisans. But what truly captured the attention of researchers was the blade itself. After multiple analyses using modern technology, scientists discovered that the metal composition of the blade contained extremely high levels of nickel and cobalt, matching the characteristics of meteoritic iron rather than iron produced from ore found on Earth. This immediately caused excitement throughout the archaeological community. We know that Tutankhamun ruled Egypt approximately from 1333 to 1323 BC, a period when humans had not yet mastered iron smelting. During that era, copper and bronze were still the primary materials used for making weapons. Iron was considered more valuable than gold because it could only be obtained from meteorites that fell from the sky. The ancient Egyptians even referred to this material as iron from the sky, believing that it was a gift from the gods. Therefore, the fact that a young pharaoh was buried with a dagger made from a metal that came from outer space is truly extraordinary. It not only demonstrated the supreme status of the king, but also suggested that ancient Egyptians may have understood the value of this rare material more than 3,000 years ago. However, the mystery does not end there. On February 11th, a study published in the journal Meteoritics and Planetary Science proposed a new theory about the origin of the dagger. The research team suggested that not only was the blade forged from meteoritic iron, but the dagger's handle and craftsmanship also shared many similarities with the Anatolia region, located in modern-day Turkey. When analyzing the adhesive material on the golden handle, scientists discovered traces of lime plaster, a material that was commonly used in Anatolia during the period when Tutankhamun ruled. What makes this discovery significant is that this type of adhesive was not widely used in Egypt during the same historical period. The researchers did not rely only on material evidence. They also discovered an important detail in ancient diplomatic documents unearthed at Amarna, Egypt. These texts recorded that King Tushratta of the Mitanni Kingdom, located in the region of ancient Anatolia, once sent at least one iron dagger as a gift to Pharaoh Amenhotep III, the grandfather of Tutankhamun. If this historical record is accurate, it is possible that the dagger buried with Tutankhamun was actually a valuable diplomatic gift that had been passed down through several generations of the royal family. In addition, the research team discovered that the blade had been produced using a forging technique at temperatures below 1,742 degrees Fahrenheit. Traces of the mineral troilite, along with distinctive crystal structures known as Widmanstätten patterns, were still preserved within the metal. These characteristics are commonly found in iron meteorites, further strengthening the theory that the material truly came from beyond Earth. Of course, not everyone agrees with this conclusion. Another research group, which published its findings in the 2022 book Iron from Tutankhamun's Tomb, presented a much more cautious perspective. According to them, based on the currently available evidence, it is still impossible to determine exactly where the dagger was manufactured. The researchers pointed out that many decorative details on the handle reflect styles commonly found in the Aegean region, while the overall shape strongly reflects ancient Egyptian artistic traditions. This means that the possibility that the dagger was produced in Egypt or that it was assembled from components made in different locations remains entirely possible. The debate became even more intense when Albert Jambon, a researcher from Sorbonne University in France who has spent many years studying meteoritic iron, challenged the earlier conclusions. He argued that the material previously identified as adhesive may actually have been limestone dust left behind from cleaning the artifact during restoration work in the 1920s. At that time, conservation experts often used limestone powder to clean treasures discovered inside Tutankhamun's tomb. Furthermore, he emphasized that the handle and blade could have been created in two different locations before being assembled into a complete artifact. Therefore, determining the dagger's place of origin based only on the handle is not convincing enough. Another expert, Marion Feldman, a professor of archaeology at Johns Hopkins University in the United States, also stated that the Anatolia origin theory is highly interesting, but more evidence is needed before any final conclusion can be reached. And so, even today, more than a century after Tutankhamun's tomb was first excavated, this mysterious dagger continues to be studied by laboratories around the world. So what do you think? Was this dagger truly forged in Anatolia and later brought to Egypt as a diplomatic gift? Or did ancient Egyptian craftsmen create this masterpiece using a gift that literally came from the sky? Leave your answer in the comments below and let's discuss this incredible mystery together. 9,000-year-old sculptural complex in the Jordanian desert, the secret of the world's first hunters. Leaving behind the mysterious pyramids of Egypt, we will now continue our journey to Jordan, a country located in the Middle East, famous for the ancient city of Petra and vast deserts that seem to stretch endlessly toward the horizon, filled with nothing but sand and stone. Why are we here? Because in the middle of this barren landscape, archaeologists discovered a group of ancient structures dating back nearly 9,000 years, thousands of years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Even more remarkable is that these structures were not grand palaces or massive temples. Instead, they were incredibly sophisticated stone models that revealed how people during the Neolithic period survived, hunted, and even carried out complex spiritual rituals. This discovery forced experts to completely reconsider the intelligence and capabilities of people who lived nearly 10,000 years ago. This extraordinary discovery was made in October 2021 by the Southeast Badia Archaeological Project, SEBAP, in the eastern desert region of Jordan. Although excavations had been completed several years earlier, the research results were only made public after scientists collected enough evidence to confirm the exceptional importance of this site. From the moment they examined the first artifacts, experts realized they were looking at a structure unlike anything ever recorded in archaeological history. According to the SEBAP team, these are the only known architectural models from the Neolithic period discovered so far. This means that before this discovery, scientists had never found anything similar. In the middle of the desert, archaeologists uncovered numerous stone carvings of different sizes. The largest pieces stood approximately 44 inches tall, while the smaller ones were around 28 inches tall. At first glance, many people might assume these were simply ordinary stone statues. But the more researchers studied them, the more they realized that these objects were actually miniature models representing a large-scale hunting system. Imagine the scene approximately 9,000 years ago. At that time, humans had no cities, had not learned how to use metal, and had not built massive structures. Their survival depended almost entirely on nature. To survive, they had to hunt wild animals every day. However, instead of simply chasing individual prey with spears and primitive weapons, they developed an incredibly intelligent method. They created systems known as desert kites, or hunting traps. These were long stone walls stretching hundreds of yards, and sometimes even miles, arranged in the shape of enormous V-shaped funnels. When herds of gazelles or other large animals passed through the area, they would be guided between the narrowing walls and eventually forced into an enclosed area where hunters could simply wait and capture them. What is truly astonishing is that the newly discovered stone models recreated almost exactly the structure of these real hunting traps found across the landscape. This proves that Neolithic people were not only capable of constructing large-scale structures, but also had the ability to plan, design, and create architectural models before beginning construction. This represents a major advancement in human thinking, one that many scientists previously believed only appeared much later in more developed civilizations. But the surprises did not end there. Around the stone models, the archaeological team discovered traces of an ancient campsite. At this location, they uncovered semi-subterranean houses, remains of fireplaces, numerous animal bones, pottery fragments, and many finely crafted tools made from flint. These artifacts allowed researchers to create a clearer picture of the lives of hunter communities thousands of years ago. They were not the unorganized groups of wandering people that we once imagined. Instead, they knew how to select locations for settlements, cooperate in building large-scale hunting systems, and divide tasks among members of their community. Even more fascinating, researchers also discovered several stone platforms used for rituals, along with small animal figurines. This detail immediately attracted the attention of archaeologists. According to experts, the stone models may not have been created only for planning hunting activities. They may have also carried spiritual significance. In other words, before major hunts, ancient communities may have gathered around these models to perform rituals, hoping that supernatural forces would bless their journey and help them return with abundant prey. This hypothesis was proposed because many ritual objects were discovered directly beside the stone models. Of course, this remains only a theory, but if it proves to be true, the discovery in Jordan would not only demonstrate the technical abilities of Neolithic humans, but also provide a completely new perspective on their spiritual lives. It would show that humans were combining labor, belief systems, and community organization from a remarkably early period. This is something that very few archaeological discoveries have been able to clearly demonstrate before. You see, what appeared to be nothing more than a few lifeless stones has become a key that helps unlock the secrets of one of humanity's oldest hunting systems. Sometimes, the smallest archaeological remains can tell stories far greater than any palace or pyramid. They remind us that thousands of years ago, humans already knew how to observe nature, calculate, innovate, and place their hopes and beliefs into sacred rituals before facing the challenges of survival. This truly is a discovery beyond imagination. Don't you think so? The Egyptian woman who was mummified, twice in the strangest way. A 3,200-year-old secret revealed through modern CT scanning technology. After witnessing the 9,000-year-old stone structures in the Jordanian desert, many people might think that ancient humans had already shown us everything they were capable of. But now, we will return to Egypt, where mummies have always been one of the most mysterious symbols of the Nile civilization. Over the past century, thousands of mummies have been excavated and studied. However, among all of these discoveries, one particular case forced experts to completely rethink what they knew about ancient Egyptian mummification techniques. It was the remains of a young woman who died approximately 3,200 years ago. But what makes her truly extraordinary is that she was not only mummified once, she was later repaired and mummified a second time using a method that had never been recorded anywhere else in the world. Interestingly, this secret was not discovered inside a newly excavated pyramid or a recently uncovered tomb hidden beneath the desert sands. Instead, the mummy had been quietly resting inside a museum for more than 160 years, with no one realizing that anything unusual was hidden within. According to historical records, this mummy was purchased in Egypt around 1856 to 1857 by an Australian politician. By 1860, the artifact had been transported to Australia and placed on display at the Chow Chok Wing Museum of the University of Sydney. For generations, everyone believed that it was simply an Egyptian mummy preserved using traditional methods. However, modern science revealed something completely different. A research team from Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, decided to use CT scanning technology to examine the entire mummy without removing the layers of linen wrappings. This examination revealed a secret that left the entire research team astonished. Hidden beneath multiple layers of linen was not only the woman's body, but also a layer of mud covering the entire remains. This was something that had never been discovered in any Egyptian mummy before. Scientific dating results showed that the woman died around 1200 BC when she was approximately 26 to 35 years old. She lived during the late New Kingdom period, one of the most prosperous eras of ancient Egyptian history. After discovering the mysterious mud layer, scientists decided to examine the head area more carefully. They carefully removed part of the outer covering to observe the structure underneath. And it was at that moment that the story of this woman slowly began to emerge. According to the research team, she was initially mummified completely, according to traditional Egyptian rituals. Her body was wrapped in multiple layers of linen, just like thousands of other Egyptian mummies. But sometime after the burial process had been completed, something happened. Perhaps tomb robbers broke into the burial site, or perhaps the mummy was damaged during transportation or through an ancient examination. Whatever the cause, the woman's body suffered severe damage in several areas. Instead of abandoning the remains, the people responsible for caring for the mummy made an extraordinary decision. They attempted to restore the mummy, but the way they carried out this restoration surprised modern experts. The ancient Egyptians covered the damaged areas of the body with a layer of white paint, followed by a layer of mud, then another layer of red paint, and finally wrapped the body again with additional layers of fresh linen. In other words, this woman was mummified for a second time. This was not a new burial process, but rather something similar to a preservation surgery performed for the deceased. This discovery raises an important question. Why would they invest so much effort simply to repair a dead body? The answer lies within the beliefs of ancient Egyptians. To them, death was not the end, but the beginning of a journey into the afterlife. In order for the soul to be reborn and reunite with the god Osiris, the body had to remain complete. If a mummy was destroyed or missing parts of the body, the deceased might not be able to successfully complete the journey after death. Because of this sacred belief, when they discovered that the mummy had been damaged, those responsible tried to restore the body in every way they could. According to a research paper published in the journal plas.So, this is the first and only mud mummy ever documented in the world. Scientists believe that the use of mud instead of traditional resins or preservation substances may have been caused by the severe damage suffered by the body. The mud layer acted like a reinforcing framework, helping maintain the shape of the body before it was wrapped again in linen. Another detail that caught the attention of researchers was the layer of red paint applied on the outside. In ancient Egyptian culture, the color red often symbolized power, status, and strength. This suggests that the woman was likely not an ordinary person, but may have belonged to a wealthy family or held an important position within society. However, the mystery did not end there. When scientists continued comparing dates using scientific methods, they discovered that the coffin did not belong to the same period as the mummy. In reality, the coffin was approximately 200 years younger than the body inside it. This led to a fascinating theory. Researchers believe that after the mummy was removed from its original resting place by tomb robbers, it may have been placed inside a different coffin to create a complete set before being sold to collectors of ancient artifacts during the 19th century. If this theory is correct, then for hundreds of years, the mummy and the coffin were never originally meant to belong together. Only through modern CT scanning technology was this hidden truth finally revealed. This discovery not only helps archaeologists better understand ancient Egyptian mummification techniques, but also shows how much effort they were willing to invest in protecting the physical integrity of the deceased, even after the body had already been damaged. It was not simply a method of preserving a body. It was also an expression of respect and a powerful belief in life after death, a belief that existed for thousands of years in the land of the pharaohs. 4 ancient Roman swords discovered inside a cave in the Judean desert. If in the previous chapter we explored how ancient Egyptians went to extraordinary lengths to preserve a mummy for thousands of years, then this time our journey will take us to a completely different discovery. No longer are we dealing with mysterious remains or burial rituals, but with weapons that were once actually used on the battlefield. The story began in June 2023, when archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority conducted a survey of a cave near En-Gedi National Park, located in the Dead Sea region of Israel. At first, their goal was simply to study several ancient inscriptions carved into the cave walls. However, while examining a narrow crevice deep inside the cave, the archaeological team unexpectedly discovered something no one could have imagined. Hidden behind layers of rock were 4 ancient Roman swords, along with several other artifacts that had been carefully concealed. From the moment they saw them, experts immediately realized they were looking at an extraordinary discovery. Normally, iron swords deteriorate severely after hundreds of years due to oxidation, and many survive only as fragments of rusted metal. But this case was completely different. All 4 swords were preserved in an astonishing condition. The blades had suffered almost no corrosion. The handles remained intact. Even the wooden and leather scabbards had survived after nearly 2 millennia. According to archaeologists, this remarkable preservation was possible because of the extremely dry climate of the Dead Sea region, where the low humidity significantly slowed the deterioration of organic materials. After conducting measurements, researchers determined that 3 of the swords had blades measuring between 24 and 26 inches in length, while the 4th sword belonged to a different style, with a blade measuring approximately 18 inches. What surprised many people was that the blades still retained an incredible level of sharpness. For archaeologists, this discovery was almost like a time capsule, because it is extremely rare for an ancient collection of weapons to survive in such a complete condition. Through analysis of their designs and forging techniques, Experts determined that these swords date back approximately 1,900 years, meaning they were created around the 2nd century AD when the Roman Empire controlled the region of Judea. But what makes this discovery even more fascinating is the question, why were Roman military swords hidden inside a remote cave? To answer this question, historians compared the dates of the artifacts with major historical events that took place in the region. The results suggest that they were likely connected to the Bar Kokhba revolt, which occurred around 132 AD. This was one of the largest Jewish rebellions against Roman rule. The conflict lasted for several years and involved extremely violent battles. According to the research team's theory, these 4 swords may have been captured by Jewish fighters after defeating a group of Roman soldiers. Instead of using them immediately, they may have carried the weapons into the cave and hidden them inside a rock crevice to prevent Roman forces from discovering them. Perhaps the people who hid them believed they would return someday to retrieve them, but that never happened. The war ended. The owners of the swords may have been killed or forced into exile, and so, this collection of weapons remained hidden in darkness for nearly 2,000 years. Dr. Aiton Klein, one of the archaeologists directly involved in the research, stated that this was an exceptionally rare discovery. According to him, Israel had never before uncovered a collection of Roman swords preserved in such a complete condition. Beyond their value as historical artifacts, these swords provide scientists with an opportunity to study ancient metalworking techniques, weapon production methods, and the military strategies of ancient Rome. One detail that particularly excited researchers was the survival of the wooden and leather handles and scabbards. Normally, these organic materials would decay very quickly. However, inside the cave near the Dead Sea, the natural environment almost seemed to have frozen time, allowing them to survive until today. That is why it would not be an exaggeration to call these swords silent witnesses of one of the most turbulent periods in ancient history. X-rays of an Egyptian mummy reveal a shocking secret. The portrait of a woman actually hid the remains of a 5-year-old girl. If the Roman swords we just explored allowed us to hear the story of a battle that disappeared into the distant past, then the next discovery shows how modern technology is completely transforming the way humans study history. Today, archaeologists no longer need to remove layers of linen wrappings or open ancient coffins to uncover the secrets hidden inside a mummy. With only CT scans, high-resolution X-rays, and X-ray diffraction technology, scientists can examine every bone, every tooth, and even detect tiny objects measuring only a few millimeters without damaging the artifact. And thanks to these technologies, an Egyptian mummy that seemed to have already been thoroughly studied for decades suddenly revealed a secret that astonished the scientific world. The main subject of this story is a mummy known as Hawara portrait, mummy number 4, which is currently preserved at the Block Museum of Art at Northwestern University in Illinois, United States. This mummy was excavated between 1910 and 1911 at the Hawara Archaeological site in Egypt, a famous location in the Fayum region where many mummies from the period of Roman rule in Egypt were discovered, dating back to approximately the 1st century AD. What makes this artifact especially remarkable is the portrait attached to the front of the mummy. According to burial traditions during the Roman period in Egypt, portraits of the deceased were often painted on wooden panels and placed over the head area of the mummy. These portraits are considered highly valuable works of art and are viewed as a bridge between Egyptian and Roman cultures. The portrait on Hawara number 4 shows the image of an adult woman with delicate facial features and hair styled according to Roman fashion. For many years, almost everyone believed that the person wrapped inside the linen layers was the same woman depicted in the portrait. But then, modern technology proved something completely different. A research team led by Professor Stuart Stock, an expert in cell biology and developmental biology at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine in the United States, examined the mummy using advanced CT scanning technology combined with high-resolution X-ray imaging. The moment the first images appeared on the screen, the entire research team was stunned. Inside the linen wrappings was not an adult woman. It was a young girl who was only about 5 years old. Scientists determined this through the shape of the femur, the structure of the skull, and especially the teeth. The child had not yet developed any permanent teeth, which is a very clear indicator of her age. The total length of the mummy, including the outer wrappings, was only about 36.9 inches, matching the size of a child's body rather than an adult. This discovery immediately raised a series of questions. Why did the portrait show an adult woman? Was the artist painting an imagined image of the child as the family wished she would become in adulthood? Or did the portrait originally belong to another mummy and become attached incorrectly during transportation over hundreds of years? Until today, researchers have still not been able to provide a definite answer. But the greatest surprise was still waiting. When the team continued examining small areas of the mummy using X-ray diffraction technology, they discovered a mysterious object hidden inside the linen wrappings around the abdomen. The object had an elliptical shape and was only about 0.28 inches long. Because its exact nature could not yet be determined, scientists temporarily named it Inclusive F. To investigate further, they used X-ray diffraction technology to identify the material composition without removing the object from the mummy. The results showed that the object was made of calcite, a mineral commonly found in nature. However, an even bigger question emerged. What was such a small calcite object doing inside the wrappings of a child mummy? According to Professor Stuart Stock, it was most likely an amulet. He explained that during the mummification process, the child's body may have suffered damage in the abdominal area. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, whenever a part of the body was damaged during mummification, priests would often place a sacred object, such as a scarab-shaped amulet, in that location to protect the deceased during their journey into the afterlife. The position of the calcite object perfectly matches this theory. However, because the object is extremely small and the CT images do not have enough resolution to reveal any carved patterns, scientists still cannot confirm whether it was truly an amulet or another type of ritual object. But that was not the only discovery. The examination also revealed 36 objects resembling small needles scattered throughout the mummy. Among them, 11 were located around the head and neck area, 20 near the feet, and 5 around the body. At first, many people believed these were ancient ritual tools. However, material analysis showed that they were actually modern metal wires and pins, most likely added during the 20th century to reinforce and stabilize the mummy during museum preservation. Another discovery that caught the researchers' attention was a mud-like sediment layer found between the layers of linen wrapping. According to Professor Stock, this material was likely mud used by ancient priests during the mummification process. Although this detail is rare, it provides valuable information that helps researchers better understand ancient Egyptian burial techniques. He also explained that this was the first time in history that X-ray diffraction technology had been successfully applied to an intact mummy, opening an entirely new direction for archaeological research. Through this method, scientists can study the internal structure of ancient artifacts without cutting them open or damaging priceless pieces of human history. Sometimes, a single X-ray is enough to completely change the story of the past. A mummy once believed to belong to an adult woman turned out to contain the remains of a 5-year-old girl. An object only a few millimeters long opened the door to countless theories about the beliefs and rituals of ancient Egyptians nearly 2,000 years ago. An unbelievable discovery, don't you think? My friends, today's journey of discovery has taken us through 7 mysterious archaeological findings, where each mummy, each artifact, and each ancient site has raised questions that science still cannot fully answer. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of archaeology is not simply discovering what was lost, but the endless journey of uncovering the past in order to better understand the history of humanity. So, which discovery from today's video impressed you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Ancient History, and turn on the notification bell so you can join us on more incredible journeys of discovery in the future. For now, goodbye, and we'll see you again in the next video.